All right, welcome back to the Farm Cook, new branding, kitchen. Today we're gonna make some meatballs and sauce. It's gonna be a small batch just to try some out. So let's go, let's cook. What do we have today? For the sauce and meatballs, we've got some diced shallot, because I thought it was an onion, but it turned out it was a shallot. Some prepped fresh basil, some San Marzano tomatoes, a little bit of butter, and that's what we're gonna use to start getting the sauce ready. Now we're ready. Got our pot ready, got our veg prepped. Now all we have to do is cook. Here we go. Get some heat going under the skillet or the cast iron pot. Drop in some butter. And once that comes up to temperature and gets all nice and melty, we're gonna add the shallots and eventually the fresh basil and start the process of building some flavor. So we just got this going on a medium heat. Wanted to get a little bit of heat into the pot because it's pretty thick. We're just gonna saute these guys for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. This is one very large shallot. It looked like a small onion. So that's what we're doing right now. And this was salted butter, probably 2 tablespoons. Let that cook down a little bit. Eventually we'll add the fresh basil and we'll continue. All right, it's been a couple of minutes. We're starting to get some color on the shallot, so it's time to drop in the fresh basil. And this is just a rough chop. Don't have to do anything to get it too finely chopped, because what we're gonna do is actually cook this down and then put everything into an immersion blender to chop it all up. And this is smelling so fabulous right now. I wish this was smell-o-vision. Now we're getting ready. After the shallots and the basil has had a chance to cook down for a little bit, we're gonna add some of these San Marzano tomatoes and let that cook down for a bit. So once the pot has had a chance to apply the heat and allow the heat to break down the tomatoes and infuse that buttery, basil-y, shallot-y oil, it's all gonna get infused together and produce a wonderful red sauce that I'm gonna enjoy a great deal, and going to pair with some tiny meatballs that we're going to make next. This is just going to hang out for quite a while. The sauce is coming together beautifully. This is the very early stages, but you can already tell the tomatoes are getting a little bit softer. You can see the green color of the basil is changing a little bit. I'm really interested to see how this little happy accident is going to turn out. I didn't expect when I cut into the shallot that it was going to be a shallot. I thought it was going to be an onion. So we'll see how shallot goes in the making of tomato sauce. So while the sauce is bubbling away on the stove, I think it's time to get ready to make the meatballs that are going to go along with this. So we have about a pound, a little over a pound of ground beef in the bowl. We've got some ricotta cheese, a little sugar, as my friend Joanne would say, Parmesan cheese from the store. We've got a little bit of a beaten up egg and some seasonings. The seasonings are some onion powder, garlic powder, some fresh pepper, as well as a little sazon completo. Shout out Dr. Alberni. All we're gonna do is start mixing everything together and make some meatballs. But these meatballs are gonna be a little bit different than what you probably are used to seeing. We're gonna be making tiny meatballs. Because why not? Oh, why am I using ricotta in the meatballs? Well, partially as a way to enrich the flavor, but also I'm trying to decrease the number of carbs in my diet. So instead of using breadcrumbs, which are traditional, I'm using the cheeses as kind of a binder and a filler to replace the character that you typically get with breadcrumbs. And the results are usually very, very tasty. So have to figure out how much of the binder we need. It sort of depends on the meat. It also depends a bit on how big an egg you have, because that's, you know, a good chunk of the liquid that goes along with the meat. So this part is not super appealing, but it's a necessary step to incorporate everything, make sure spices, seasonings get distributed, the cheese gets distributed evenly. And it'll just take a couple of minutes to get this all sorted. All right, that looks pretty good. So let's grab a little bit of this meat mix and make some smallish meatballs. That's actually a little big. Let's go a little smaller than that. We're gonna make a bunch of these guys, plop them onto the pan. The oven is already set to convection roast. What we're gonna do is roast these at 375 for about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, because they're small, they won't take long to cook. And we don't want to cook them all the way through. We want them to finish cooking in the sauce. So this is just going to get a little bit of a sear on the outside and allow them to stay together when we're cooking the sauce. We're at right now, after about 10, 15 minutes, just low heat. The tomatoes are bubbling away. They're starting to break down. The sauce is coming together, and I think it would be a good time to add a little bit of tomato paste. And this is just one small can. I think they're about 6 ounces of tomato paste. It's going to help not only boost the flavor, but I actually improve the texture of the sauce. Again, we're gonna be running this through an immersion blender once it has a chance to break down a little bit more. But I wanted to provide a little bit of time for the tomato paste to get not only incorporated into the sauce, but actually to cook off some of that. Sometimes if you have some canned tomato products, soon after they come out of the can, it can taste a little bit off. So just gonna get this incorporated. We're now preheated. Time for the meatballs to go into the oven. They'll cook for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll see what they're looking like. All right, the sauce has been cooking for a bit. Tomatoes have had a chance to soften up. The tomato paste has been incorporated. Hopefully all the flavors have been incorporated. A couple of last little bits that I'm gonna take care of right now. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, and then I'm gonna use the immersion blender to accelerate breaking down all of the tomatoes and make sure there aren't any super big pieces, just because it's less palatable if there's big pieces of tomato. So just gonna add in some salt and start whizzing. that's it. The immersion blender takes really quick care of all of those chunks of tomatoes, whatever, if you got bits of onion or bits of whatever, this guy takes care of it. So sauce looks lovely, just needs some more time to continue to cook and allow the flavors to blend. We also need to keep it going for a bit in order to finish cooking the tiny meatballs that are currently in the oven. Again, we need them to have a certain amount of time in the oven to sort of hold together, establish a little bit of a, I don't know, crust on the outside. And then they'll finish cooking in here. And by the way, you don't need to use an immersion blender. It's just, my wife doesn't like big chunks of tomatoes in her tomato sauce, so that's why I break it up. And I don't have all day today to cook down the sauce till it's, really, really broken down. So this is just, again, this is just an example of what you can do. You can do this at home. This is what I do. It's not authentic, it's just what I do. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. Let's check the meatballs. All right, they're starting to come together. They need a little bit more. Let's just flip these guys around. Make sure we got cooking on all sides. That everybody's getting a little bit of love, a little bit of heat. And that'll be it. Meatballs have been flipped. They're starting to brown up a little bit, but they need a little more time. So back in the oven they go. Let's set the timer for another 10 minutes. So let's check on the meatballs. Give them another 10 minutes. Guys are looking good. There's a fair amount of liquid in the pan because these were 80-20 meatballs. Or, 80-20 ground beef. And I'm just gonna drop these guys into the pot of sauce to allow them to finish cooking. And it's gonna be a nice little happy marriage of the flavor of the meatballs going into the sauce and the flavor of the sauce going into the meatballs. Going to be delicious. Just gently incorporating the meatballs into the sauce, making sure everybody's covered. Don't want those meatballs to get dried out. After all the love and attention we put into making them yummy. So we're just gonna let this now simmer at a low temperature for another, 30, 45 minutes. We'll have to test it and see what happens. So we're back. The sauce has been cooking down with the meatballs for about another 40 minutes or so. It's getting a little bit thicker, it's bubbly, it's smelling wonderful. I think now it's probably time to give it a taste. See where we're at. What better way than to test the sauce and the meatballs and put it all together. Seeing how it goes. Let me turn that down just a little bit. Meatballs are totally cooked all the way through. It's gonna be pretty hot, but let's give it a shot. Not bad. Not bad at all. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, just seasoning. But this is ready to go. Mix that in, let it sit for a little bit and incorporate. And we've got meatballs and sauce.